Okay, people. So, yo, this is a treat, man. We get to sit down with not only, right? Not only Danny Dones, not only Phil Cordell, but also Corey Allen. Yo, gentlemen, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. Welcome to the pod.
Well, thanks so much for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much, man. We're stoked.
Hey, well, I am really happy because Clone Cops is legit. Clone Cops is legit, man. This film, man, I was like pumped all the way through. Man. Yo, you knocked it out of the park, gentlemen.
Well, thanks so much, man. That means a lot. We appreciate that.
Hey, no, because right, I don't watch trailers, right? I trust the PR people I work with. They send me through these things, and I'm just like, yo, okay. So I watched the film, and it opens up, and you think it's one thing. Then suddenly we get something else. Then we get something else. And it's just like, yo, you know what I mean? They managed to do this without me suspecting, without me going, oh, well, obviously it's this, obviously it's that. You know what I mean? Like, you really put this story together. And I think a lot of times people try and be real smart and real slick, but it's just like, man, like you might as well put a window in front of me because I see this shit. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
Yo, yours was seamless, man. How difficult was getting all of these components together?
I mean, it was certainly a challenge. I ended up editing the film, which was not our initial plan, but we had a really narrow window to get our sound mix in with a great company, Seismic Sound. And so we kind of pushed real fast to get the edit done so that we could get in there and get it mixed by this top-notch studio. And so, yeah, man, it was definitely, when we were shooting it, I think it worked out for the best, because when we were shooting it, I was like, man, this is a lot of pieces. There's a lot of like, everything kind of has to slot in, you know, perfectly to make this work. And I knew those pieces really well while we were shooting. And so it kind of, I think it was kind of kismet that I ended up doing the edit, because then it was like, well, I know exactly how this fits together. I know exactly how I want to tell that story and which pieces are important and where they need to be. And so, yeah, it ended up being great for us that I did the edit so that we were able to make that happen. And thank you. I appreciate that. As a writer, there's nothing worse than sitting in a movie and being like, that's the killer. I know exactly who it is. You know, like you're just like that. And then there are sometimes where I'll say the next line and whoever I'm watching the movie with, you know, is like, oh, did you see this already? I'm like, no, it's just obvious that's what the next line's going to be.
Yeah, that is the big thing. And I think sometimes like it's fine for people to have an idea, but you don't want them to know all of the beats of what you've done. And so that's why this was so refreshing, that you just had these things happen that you're just like, oh, okay, damn. You know, it was like, am I correct that this is all of you's first feature?
Yes, sir.
Okay. God damn.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
it doesn't seem like it is. You know what I mean? That's the thing. Like, it doesn't seem like, you know, there's those, you know, little mistakes that sometimes first-time filmmakers do. You know, story maybe drops a little bit, production's a little bit. You know what I mean? Everything feels like this could be dropping from like Disney or someone like that.
Man. That's not, believe me, they're in there. I see them.
Don't tell anyone, man.
Yeah. Every time Danny and I watch the movie at another screening, or, you know, whatever it is, he and I both have seen the movie. probably no less than 200 times. So we're like overly critical, and every time we're pointing out other things.
Mm-hmm.
But it's great. You know, it's great feedback, and we hear that pretty often. Is it feels like we really struck much higher than probably anticipated by a lot of people, which is great.
I've seen it 100 times as well, and I love it every time, Kevin.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
what was it like playing a clone?
Dude, it was a trip. It was great, man. It was like I got to do all the weird, goofy stuff that I've ever wanted to do. We shot. It was our first feature, but Danny and I did a streaming streaming series, short form called Nashville Dad's Club, where we got real silly and did some fun stuff. But playing the clone was a blast, man, because I got to bring a lot of different looks and styles and attitudes to these different variations of kind of the same underlying dude. And so it was a real dream come true, man.
And your kids, you got your kids up in the joint.
I did, man. Yeah, absolutely. Don't tell SAG. Shh. But, because that's a big pain. But yeah, they were like what 6 and 8 at the time, or 5 and 7, and so now it's about 2 years later. They're a little older. The movie finally came out. They're seeing it in the theater, and it's just one of those cool. Everybody wants to be the cool dad, and I'm like, cool. I'm gonna put you in the movie, and then that's one thing you can check off. I'd be like, well, I was in a movie once.
Well, yeah, and now they're a little older. It's even more cred with their friends. You know what I mean? Because when you're young, it's just like, I was in the movie. Be like, oh, cool. Now it's just like, I was in a movie. Be like, yo.
I know. Dude, my kids are out there doing the most on the promotional side. Like everybody in their classes knows what's up. They are Clone Cops fans.
Well, it is a movie that kids at that age are kind of into. Like as we're doing promotional stuff and walking around in all these cities with, Philip dressed up as the clone cop, kids clock it immediately and are just like, they're drawn to that helmet and everything. It's a walking cartoon. Like, of course they're into it.
Well, I mean, one thing that you guys have done, it's like the resources, right? Your promotional resources, like just the merch, just all of these things. I mean, the amount of times I talk to people, and I'm just like, to get people interested, you need to do more stuff, right? Like, and you've got like the pseudo trailers, clone media, right? You just, I mean, you're giving people clone media, right? You've got all of these things that you're doing, right? And that's great because it's drawing people, it's getting their attention. Like how conscious were you when you were putting this together that these things would be a pull factor for the film, or were they just things that you were creating because we got some time, we might as well do this, or was it more of a conscious effort?
I would say it's been very conscious from the get-go. We know that kind of the typical course for filmmakers is that we make a movie and then we hope that somebody helps us get it out and that they blow it up. And like in the indie film landscape right now, those Cinderella stories are few and far between. Like you got to get out there and work. And so thankfully none of us are afraid of work. And the reality is, we're like, oh man, we got to go shoot video content. And then we get out there, we're just giggling and having a blast because it's what we love to do. We love hanging out, making each other laugh. And so we knew from the get-go we wanted to make a movie that was a spectacle, and we knew we wanted to do some serious world building. And so all the social media accompanying videos kind of help us to build out what ultimately we hope is, a valuable IP. That we've built this whole dumb world, for people to come check out.
No, it's. Did you ever watch Babylon 5?
I've seen a little bit of it, yeah.
Okay, because in season 1, like season 1 was, well, other than season 5, season 1 was probably the weakest of the seasons, right? It was fine, but in that one, they kind of showed you everything on the station. So it's like, let's go to the dining quarter, and you go into the restaurant bit. Let's go to the garden, and so. But then after that, they could just say the thing and that's it. You know what it is. They've already shown you. And it's kind of like with this content that you've created, you've shown people the thing, right? So then the film can just breathe on its own because people already have a feel for what this world is. And that's really great. It's a really great thing to do.
Thank you for saying that, man. It means a ton. I mean, we've heard that from just a couple people, but that's always been our intention. And it's so great to hear that it's landing and that people are recognizing what we're at least attempting to do. Is it going to work? Is it going to be a global smash success? We sure hope so. But we don't know. But it certainly will be because, you know, we didn't just make the movie. We're putting in as much work as we can, man. And really, again, thank you so much for recognizing that and, you know, and seeing it for what it is, which is we're giving it our absolute all. We're saying there's no stone unturned on the marketing side. Like anything we can think to try, we're doing it, man, because if this is our only shot, you know, then we're got to leave it all on the floor, leave it all on the field.
No, it's a tremendous attitude, man. It's a tremendous attitude to have. It's like, I remember the film Hustle and Flow. Did you see that one?
Yeah.
Terrence Howard,
right? Yeah, we shot that in Memphis, Tennessee, just down the road.
yeah, of course, yeah. You guys must have, right? But I remember watching that film and just thinking, because his character was just like, "Yo, put me on. Why don't you put me on?" But without doing all of the work, all of the groundwork. You know what I mean? There's like I worked in the music industry for a minute, right? And it was just always out. Every night of the week, you were out at open mics and different events, and you'd see the same people, right? Doing their thing, doing their spots over and over again, right? And that was the grind. That was the hustle. But he wanted the glory without doing the hustle. And there's so many times you speak to people and they want that big film, right? But then they don't want to do any like press. They don't want to, you know, go out and do a thing, like create something, or, you know, they don't want to do that work. So it's just like, you want the, you know what I mean, the castle, but you don't want to, you know, build the road up to it. And so it's just like, it's always refreshing when you talk to people who have the mindset of grinding.
Yeah,
I think
we've had the conversation. We've had the conversation for a while now that, you know, we like to refer to ourselves as the not fucking around crew, very purposefully, like because we wrapped filming on Clone Cops back in October of 2022, and within a few weeks of wrapping, you know, we immediately started ideating on what's the social media strategy, what's the press strategy if we end up without a publicist, like what can we do that starts to generate interest before we even have a movie to share? And, you know, we spent 2 years at this point almost creating content on nearly every single platform. Some of it is adjacent to the movie and has really close ties to the movie. And there's other content that it's just Phil and the Clone Cop helmet, and it's comedy and kind of a form of comedy that is aligned with the same style that you would see in the movie. But, you know, you could watch a ton of our content and have no clue what the movie's about, but it's really about just creating that presence, getting people to see and understand the Clone Cop world as we continue to build that out. But you know, appreciate the acknowledgement of 2 years of grinding to get us to here, which has been fun.
And I think what I've kind of realized, it's certainly this last month as we've been on this promotional tour and going to different cities every weekend and showing the film, is making the movies kind of the easy part. Like that's the part that I know that, you know, I've been doing it for 15 years. That's the part that comes naturally to me. The hard part is going out here and selling it and trying to get people to pay attention to it. And that's the part that I think if you can figure that out, then you're really onto something.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be interested to know how you all deal with like a negative perception. You know what I mean? Because the amount of times that, yeah, you must have to screen this film, right? And obviously not everyone, it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, right? And there's been so many great films that for whatever reason didn't go over with people for a minute, right? Like people didn't seem to dig Donnie Darko for a while, right? I remember watching John Carter, and I really enjoyed the fuck out of that film, but I mean, the marketing was trash, right?
Yeah.
Like it was very confusing on what that was, but great film didn't go over. So when someone comes to you and be like, man, I didn't like that. What the fuck? Clone cops? You know what I mean? Like, how do you deal with that knowing that people aren't always right?
I think our tact so far with most criticism that we've received, and nobody has been brash enough to come up to us and say that to our face. I would love for that encounter. But certainly we've received our criticisms online, and our general response is, hey, thanks for checking it out. We appreciate it. You know, it is not for everybody. I don't think movies should be made for everybody. I think, you know, movies should be made to appeal to yourself first. If you're not a fan of your own movie, then, you know, how can you expect anybody else to be? So we certainly, when we set out to make this movie, we were not trying to make a mainstream comedy or anything like that. We knew it was going to be a weird little movie for weird little people, and that's who we are. So we were excited, you know, with what we were bringing to the screen, and the ideas that we were, you know, sharing made us laugh. So that was kind of our take on it. Was like, there are going to be people out there who like this. You know, we're not the only ones who think this stuff is great and think it's funny and find it interesting and engaging. And I've just yesterday saw the trailer for the new Fantastic Four movie. And my first thought on that was like, oh, they did something new and unique and interesting. The production design looks so cool. It's this like retro futuristic kind of, you know, vibe. And the colors are all really saturated and interesting looking. And I was like, yeah, that's what I want to see. I want to see something new and different.
I haven't seen the trailer. I just saw some things where people were moaning about the trailer, but I haven't watched the trailer. And so I always think that's interesting when people moan about a thing where it's just like, if the trailer is done properly, of course it's not going to show you all the film, right? You shouldn't have a clue of where the film is going from the trailer. So it's just like when people are like, oh, it looks like they're doing it. And be like, how do you know? It's a trailer, idiot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
don't you want to be surprised? I want to be surprised when I go into the theater.
Yeah, so it's been real interesting. None of us had made a thing that was getting reviewed, you know, so we knew, I mean, this is one of the steps that we're very aware of. In order for us to get where we're trying to go, we're going to have to go through this whole thing of putting it out into the world. But yeah, to Danny's point, it's always been like, we didn't make it for everybody. It's not for you know, no piece of art is for everyone, you know, it's for the people that it resonates with. And it's like, we think it's dope, you know, I mean, we could have toned it down or something, but then that wouldn't have been true to us, you know? So it really has to be a reflection of us in order for it to feel authentic and feel like our work. So that kind of takes the sting out, you know. Yeah, it really is. It takes the sting out. And to Danny's point, what, you know, as he mentioned, anytime somebody is on, you know, comes across the trailer or something, it's just like, nope, or whatever. We're like, hey, thanks so much for checking it out, man. We know it's not for everybody, you know. And actually, some people have been like, this looks dumb. I've been like, hey, we're just, you know, indie filmmakers doing our thing. And they're like, oh, well, you know, actually, it actually looks kind of, you know, once they realize that it's not this massive studio, like, we're the dudes that made it. You want to talk about it? We'll talk about it. It really takes the sting out and it takes the bite out. And yeah, man, it's been a blast. By and large, the reviews have been positive, which has been really cool. You know, we thought we were going to end up kind of lopsided on Rotten Tomatoes, right? Critics score through the floor, audience score through the roof. And that's still to be determined. You know, those reviews are still coming in, but right now it's looking more positive than negative, which we really didn't know. You don't know if people are going to dig your thing until you put it out there. So that's been a massive learning part of the journey that I thought I was ready for, but it feels different than even I thought it would now that we're here. And people, you know, people we've never met have got big-eyed, a lot of thoughts. I got a lot of opinions on your stuff.
Like, what do you think of things like Rotten Tomato? Right? Because a lot of people are like, it got this many tomatoes or whatever the thing is, right? And so it must be great. But there's a load of films that I don't really think are great, but they've got these big scores. And we know that you can game the system. So it's just like...
I'm sorry, how do you do that?
Tell me more. Tell me more.
That's a really great question, and as to give it some serious thought, I don't think it's like harmful or anything like that. I think there are people who are always going to want to know, like, hey, what should I watch? I'm looking for a recommendation. I'm looking for something new that I haven't seen before. So I think in that sense, it's great and really useful. And I think just for me, the idea of criticizing a film is maybe because I work in film and I've worked in film for so long and I've experienced being on set for 15 years. So for me, every movie is a miracle. The fact that any movie gets made that goes from a script to a finished product that's released to the public is insane, because I've seen how easily they can fall apart. So that's where I kind of just lose interest in harsh criticism of film, where it's it's one thing to say, hey, this movie had this thing going for it, I like this, here are the here's some issues that I think they could have done better with. I got no problem with that. That's great. When somebody comes out and their whole thing is just a trash movie, so like everything this director makes is trash, that kind of thing, that to me is just like, well, you really don't have a good concept of what it takes to make this happen. So everybody's welcome to their opinion, and it just doesn't really resonate with me, and I just kind of tend to discount those opinions and just say, like, okay, well, then you're probably not gonna like a lot of the same stuff I like. So it's probably not really your thoughts on films probably aren't for me.
Yeah, I feel that's very true. You know what I mean? I don't rate films because I just feel what's a 10 today might have been a 7 tomorrow, right? Because it's very dependent on the mood, dependent on what I watched before. You know what I mean? Like all of those different things. So it's I kind of just be like, yo, I enjoyed it, right? And then I'll give reference points. Like, if you like this, I think this could be for you. If you don't, then maybe you want to check out something else. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and I also think about like anything new, anything that's like breaking a mold or putting something new in front of audiences is going to be met with resistance. There's always going to be people who don't like something just because it's something they haven't seen before. People like familiarity. And so, I think, not saying we're some kind of zeitgeist defining film, but there are those movies, and you look at like Blair Witch Project, for instance, which was poorly received by critics and created a whole film genre. So, there are certainly cases to be made for like, sometimes a film might be poorly reviewed, but it's bringing something so new to the cipher that people are, tune in and really latch onto it.
Yeah. I mean, one thing about your film, because like I didn't know what it was, right? So you're seeing some things happen, right? Like, oh no, because I can't say. It was so difficult reviewing your film, man, because it's just like you can't go, and when this, because you're like, but that's gonna give away that it's this thing and like that thing, and so you have to be very careful. But it's like you're looking at certain things, and I think because it's a part of something else, you go, oh, that makes so much sense. You know what I mean? Because like that works because it's that, right? If it was solely this thing, you'd be looking at it slightly differently. But because it's a component of this other thing, and then you think about, because when you see those other things, that's what they're like, right? So they nailed that aesthetic. And I think that was the real interesting thing, that you're looking at this as a whole, because as a whole, it fits together perfectly. You know what I mean? Like there's just a huge, like the kind of shock jock bit, right?
Yeah.
And you just be like, oh man, a
Right.
fugger from Free Fire. Like you've come across them dudes, right? And like Persephone, and like they're very, Persephone reminded me of oh my god, the name is just jumped out my head. It's like she just made a film, Sook. Oh my days, she made a great film, paying it forward. She's a Canadian actress and filmmaker, but she reminded me of Persephone. And so like you've seen these kind of people, so that all works. Just the videos, right? The instructional videos, oh man, they were great, but they had that 80s vibe. So just all of these things, when you think about what they are and how it all comes together, it's just like so much thought has gone into this.
I think that's. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, I was just going to say, I think not being a part of the team that wrote this, but having the opportunity to actually put it on camera, I think Danny and Phil did an amazing job building this onion with a ton of different layers. And then, when we started pre-production conversation and got to the point where we were filming this, it became really clear that this is not a movie you can watch from behind your phone, which I think, Danny and Phil both at certain points have said that because there's so much going on, to your point, we're doing this work to build a really complex world, both inside and outside of what you think you're watching. But they did such a masterful job building these layers first on paper, and then when you see that start to come to life, like piece by piece, as you move from one act to the next in the film, I think Danny just did an amazing job really helping pull all that together, which was great.
Thanks, man. I was gonna say too that one of the earlier reviews way back when we first started showing the movie at its premieres and film festivals had mentioned that when he first watched the movie, the first half hour, he was flagging things as mistakes, probably because the film, it's an indie film. It's got some rough edges. And I think when as you're watching it, you're going like, oh, these guys are just independent filmmakers. They don't know how to make a movie. So these are mistakes that they've made. And then by the time he finished the movie, he was like, oh no, they all made sense. They weren't mistakes. They were, all those things lock in once you get to the end. So yeah, it's my hope that people don't get turned off by the indie nature of the movie that they don't pay attention to it, because we really did put a lot of thought into it, and we did a lot of world building in this movie. And I would encourage people to watch it a second time. If you enjoyed it the first time, give it a second watch, and you'll pick up on a lot of fun stuff that we put in. There's still, to this day, Corey and I watching the movie will find things that are just like, oh, that's cool. Like that's the first time I saw that, because we had so many people putting their fingerprint on it that, there are things I'm discovering still in the movie.
I mean, as the guy behind the camera, Corey, like, how logical were all the transitions? Like, did you was it a case of reading a script and it all being laid out, or coming to Danny and Phil and being like, yo, if we shoot this with this filter, it will give this kind of feel, and that separates it from this thing, and then we shoot this thing like this? Like, how did it pop into your head?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think twofold. First, like just the amount of comedy and drama that exist within the movie. I think, there was one point where I turned and asked my gaffer, like, hey, I really thought we were shooting a comedy, but I haven't seen any of that yet. So I don't know what's going on. But then at the same time, part of that was just from a scheduling standpoint, shooting the majority of our actors in a way in which we could shoot them out and be as efficient as possible, because we only had 3 weeks to shoot the entire movie. So it made sense to do some of those more dramatic pieces within those sets and with those actors all at one big chunk. And then, you start to see all that come to life when you get into like week 2 and we start layering things in. But then, from a look standpoint and the visuals, a lot of influences we talked about early on were obviously late 80s, early 90s kind of sci-fi. RoboCop was a ton. And I think I've always been really inspired by the cinematography of Dean Cundey. Made some of my favorite movies as a kid growing up, whether it was Back to the Future series, anything like that. I think had a lot of influence in how things looked, but then also being really purposeful around, like, there are commercials that exist within the movie that we kind of break the fourth wall a couple times. The toy commercial that exists with the Hit Squad, that one in particular, we said we want this to look like an 80s G.I. Joe toy commercial. So what do we have to do to pull that all the way through? So, lit that very much like an 80s toy commercial. We actually used a lens very specific to that era. So like an ingenue zoom lens that was vintage to give it that kind of look in camera right out of the gate. And then similarly, as we went through each of the different scenes, they all have kind of their own unique look, but all kind of have this through line of kind of the slightly muted use of colors that kind of connect you and tell you whether or not you're in this one part of the world you think you are, or kind of separating you and helping feel more like a commercialized TV series kind of view. And that all makes sense once you watch the movie. You're like, oh, yeah, totally. We're a voyeur at this point, or we're, in it with the team and feeling really immersed in the world that we've built. So it was a little bit of it.
No, that's cool. That's great. And like, Danny and Phil, you guys have worked together a ton, right? I mean, I've secretly, I heard that's why Danny has no hair, because it's just the stress of it all. But
I knew that.
Well, hold on. Then what's going on with you? Because you seem pretty laid back. So
I got chlamydia.
That's a myth. You should do your own research.
Oh man, I didn't get to that part of the film. And then I was just like, oh, God damn it. If only I'd finished the film before I did the thing. But what is your guys' kind of working relationship like? Because, I mean, for instance, I think when you hear about early DC comics, I mean, they seem to write everything out and be like very specific. Okay, so we're doing this, but then you heard the Marvel way, where it's just like, I mean, we'll just have the guy flying, but not dictating. It has to be this angle, just leaving it up to the artist to be like, all right, I can do that. I know what I'm doing. So where have you come to at this point in the writing and the working together kind of process?
Well, it usually begins with a cup of coffee, Kevin. We'll make some coffee and we'll spitball ideas. And then at the end of that, we'll take notes as we're discussing, and whether it's a short form thing or a long, if it's a short form thing that's kind of like, cool, I'll go home and write this one, and this one. You go home and write this one, this one. And then we'll, let each other know when they're uploaded to the shared drive, and then we'll give each other notes. And that's kind of how we did the short form stuff. On the film side, we would discuss it kind of beat by beat, so we get together and talk about the whole film, lay it down on a beat board so that we know we're hitting all of our points, where our inciting incident needs to be, or break into act 2 or midpoint, just making sure that the movie functions and works like it's supposed to from a technical perspective. That's one of those things that, people that have seen a ton of movies but never read a ton of screenplays, if something's off in that recipe, they don't know why they don't like the movie, but it just feels weird, feels funny.
Yeah.
But the hero's journey is a thing for a reason, and there are certain beats that you need to hit, or if not, know why you're not going to hit them. And so Danny and I will, for depending on the project, there are some. This one, for instance, he took the lead on, and so he was doing most of the day-to-day banging out of the script, sending to me. I'd give him notes. We'd sit down, have some very uncomfortable discussions. The closest we come to actually arguing is over like, so why'd you do this? I don't know about this.
Because that's the way they just need to go there. Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, well, we really need to talk about why, I have questions. And so not picking at each other, but picking at the thing, right? Because we both have the same goal, which is to make the best version of whatever our thing is. And so I'd like to think we don't take any of it personally. And and there are some screenplays that he takes the lead on. There's some that I take the lead on and he'll read and give me notes. And that just seems to work really well for us as a writing team, as opposed to I'll write this scene, now you write this scene, and I'll write, know, because then it can get a little funky as you try to tooth it together.
Well, yeah, because, I hear about these different methods and I sometimes wonder because two different people, right, they've got different writing styles and ways. So it's just like then meshing it together, trying to make it feel like it's cohesive rather than, wait, that felt different to that. Like, this is weird. You know what I mean? So getting that vibe. But I think what it sounds like, you've really got that synergy nailed down, because I think sometimes you'll watch something and you'll go, oh man, this could have been so good. Like if someone had said, at one point, wait, I think the character, we need to show a motive for why they would do this or not do this, right? Just adding that elevates it, right? But because someone did it on their own, there was no one to kind of like bounce that off. Maybe, I don't know, but yeah, it just sounds like, you've really got that situation perfected, which is great.
Well, and it's been a work in progress. We didn't just start where we're at in terms of our collaboration. We worked through the various ways that you can write with a partner. So we kind of landed on the special sauce for us.
Well, and I would add,
you're not meant to mess with the sauce, by the way.
Yeah, do not contaminate the sauce. I would add too that Phil and I are very close friends, and he's like a brother to me. So a lot of our collaboration comes from a place of very deep mutual respect and trust. And I think we can ask each other those tough questions, and we can kind of open up about those fears and what might be lying underneath of the creative process that other people maybe don't feel comfortable sharing with a writing partner. It's been a very to me a fulfilling working relationship, and I think we've managed to come up with some really fun stuff. And I just at the risk of getting too sappy about it, I couldn't think of a better partner. So yeah, it's been lovely to work with them on this. And then heading into the performance side of it, that's the other thing, is not only is he a great writer, he's a great performer as well. And so when it came time to start shooting the thing, he's just so damn funny that it's a pleasure to see the things that we thought were funny when it was just us sitting at a table reading them to each other in silly voices, to see that play out on the screen in a really fun way. And Phillip will always commit to the bit. That's one of my favorite things about working with him, is there's no fear there. He will do whatever needs to be done to get the laugh on camera. And that's just such a rare and amazing quality that makes him an awesome performer.
Yeah, there were just moments in this film that were just at the beginning, like talking to the granny, and it's just like taking the helmet off, and then, oh my God, the kill squad, when they all turned up and then they all got into a line, it was just like, oh my God, this is so ridiculous. What are they doing? It was just great. It was really great. Like,
Thanks.
Where did you always want to be an actor, Phil? Or did you want to be a writer? And
That's
I mean, you produce as well. So like, what came first for you?
the acting, the performance side. I grew up in plays at church and then at school, and then I got really into music and kind of left acting, to behind as I pursued a career in music. And but I always thought, man, if this doesn't pan out, I'll just hightail it to LA, land an agent, and start doing the thing, And instead, I got a great job, and met a woman that I love. We had kids, the classic story, but I still always had that itch. And at that point, the calculus changed, and it goes from, well, I don't really have the time to, or the wherewithal to just go to LA and try to break in that way. So if we're going to make it, we kind of need to make the stuff ourselves. And I always loved writing as well. And Danny and I've worked on a ton of stuff for the past 15, 20 years. But we did a TV pilot in 2018 that I wrote in my spare time. I still had a corporate job, I was a VP on an executive team at a tech company, but at night when my wife went to bed, I would go home and work on that and write it. And that back to that kind of, and
work on my script. I'm gonna go work on my script, babe.
Well, she'd be asleep by 9. So I could either lay there on my phone from 9 to 10:30 or 11 and wish that I had a career in the field that I want to be in, or I could take some action. And so I started writing, and then I started sending those scripts to Danny, and he would punch them up, and we'd swap notes back and forth. And that became one of the first kind of legit things that we shot, which was a 30-minute comedy pilot. And so, it was good, but not great. And I had a lot of people say, man, this is good. You could definitely do this full time, but you're probably going to need to commit more time to it. And that's that's how I ended up kind of focusing and getting out of the situation I was in and being like, all right, let's produce this thing and see if we can make it the gig. So that's the journey I've been on for the past 5 years, is, from kind of the corporate world into the TV and film production world. And writing has always been a vital component of that to me, because I want to be creative and have my voice in the mix there. And I just, I'm not waiting for somebody to come in and give me these awesome parts. Like, let's write some funny stuff and then let's go make it,
Well, in this one, you got to do music as well. There's the songs. Jesus Christ, the songs were hilarious. I love the songs, man.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, that was a blast. And that's just, again, getting to exercise that muscle as well. And we brought in some just top-notch musicians in Nashville to sing on some of the songs. A few of them I wrote, most of them we licensed from local musicians here in town. And the songs that you're referring to were a blast to make. And then we also had just a phenomenal score by Chris Gentle here in Nashville, who's a composer. And that added a ton of production value to the overall film and the vibe,
Awesome. And Danny, what about yourself? Because you've done art production stuff. You know what I mean? Like, what was the impetus for getting into film for you?
I worked at a movie theater in college. I was a projectionist. I was a concession stand worker. I did all that stuff, and I'd always had an interest in it. But I grew up in a small town in Kentucky. Where those types of dreams, they seem so far and so out of reach. Yeah. And it wasn't until I was in college that I kind of realized that, like, oh, there's more to filmmaking than just being an actor or just being a director. There are all these jobs that you can have that can put you on a film set, and you can be there and do the thing that you want to do. So I wound up changing my major from biology. Well, my minor. I got my degree in biology, but I changed my minor to broadcasting just for the experience of, working with the cameras and learning how to edit and doing all that stuff. And from there, I started working in television production, making commercials, which is partly why there are so many commercials in Clone Cops, is because I did that for years, and they always struck me as really funny and weird, just the beats of a commercial. And I always knew I wanted to, like, play with that format a little bit. But yeah, once I kind of did that, I realized that in Nashville, there was film being made. And I quit my job at the TV station and became a PA. And and I was on set and I was doing the thing, and it was everything I wanted it to be. And it still is. I still work daily in film today. I'm working from the office today. I'm working on a TV show for Blumhouse and Amazon right now. Yeah, it's great, and I love what I do, and I just had the opportunity to be on set and stand behind some great directors and watch them do what they do, and I certainly was into acting when I was younger. Same as Phillip. I did plays, I did all that stuff. But I've realized as I've gotten older and seen more of the industry that I really love directing, and that's really, really what I want to do. And I love writing as well, and I certainly like directing what we write. But yeah, man, it just kind of landed in there, and getting to direct Clone Cops was, truthfully, I mean, it's cliche, but it really was the culmination of my lifelong dream. So I'm just so grateful that I got to do it, and that we got to do something really fun and interesting, and that is us. I really feel like I left a lot of myself on that screen, and so if this is the only one I ever get to do, then I'll feel great about it, because I know that I put it out there.
Oh, that's great, man. That's great. How about you, Corey, man? What was the thing that got you into all of this?
Yeah, similar to Phil, I think we both had very similar paths where originally, very early on, I went to college to be a photographer, like a stills photographer, and had dreams of being like whether it was fashion photography, editorial work, but very quickly learned that you don't make a lot of money that way, specifically in a town like Nashville. Like I'd have to relocate to New York or LA or somewhere where that's more of an opportunity. And eventually found myself on the path for a corporate job, very much to support myself and my family. But photography never left, like whether it was a side hustle or just a really well invested hobby. And eventually over the years that evolved into video as video became more accessible. Living in Nashville, had an opportunity to do probably more than my fair share of music videos over the last few years. And Phil and I actually went to high school together. So we had that connection from way back. So when it was time to start working on this movie, Phil called. The schedules between my job and my availability were able to line up and give me the opportunity to come on and do something much bigger than the music video world I had been a part of up until that point. But it was a ton of fun, and a ton of learnings, and being able to make some really good lifelong friends that have really solidified the point of view that like making art in whatever form is definitely, I think, what we're meant to do, and looking forward to opportunities to continue to do that.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Like, do you often see films or TV and see an interesting shot and think, how could I duplicate that? Or, oh, you know what? I think if I came in at that other angle, that might be tighter, right? Like, do you do that? Or is it more once you've read something, it just all falls into place?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. For me, it's really difficult to watch movies and or TV shows because all I am thinking about is how that scene was lit or what the camera movement was, or like I have a really fun time watching network television with my wife, and I like to call out like very specific lighting or camera mistakes that the normal person wouldn't recognize at all. But I'm like, hey, you can see the grid in the reflection of the refrigerator that they were clearly on a time crunch. So like we've all done it. We've all left things in the shot that the normal person would never realize. But like I'll pause and rewind and I'll say, did you see that? And she's like, can you please just let it play? But it's difficult to, like, as a filmmaker, once you've spent enough time behind the camera or beside the camera or in Video Village, when you watch the work of others, almost all you can do is think about, oh, that's beautiful. I wonder how they did that. Or I know exactly how they did that because I've done it before. And it sometimes it can make it difficult to like separate yourself and just enjoy what you're watching. But I think that's also part of the work, is continuing to improve your own skill and doing that based on kind of the critique and the study of others too, which is fun.
Yeah. No, I mean, my girlfriend, like when we talk about films or TV, she'd be like, oh, I really like that. I'm like, yeah, it was okay. But, you know, like that character didn't really have an arc, and they kind of left that wide open, the story. Didn't end that well. They did. And she's just like, oh, God, I need it. Yeah.
Can we just watch it and enjoy it? And usually the answer is no.
Oh dear. Have any of you guys?
I was just reminiscing about that. I was just reminiscing today about how, remember watching movies and they were just fun, and you just sat down and just like, oh, that was fun. Like I didn't pick it apart. Yeah.
Yeah, it is the curse of it all. Like just being able to switch off, because you just think, man, if you just go in without any thought or anything, like you'd really enjoy certain things. But when you're thinking about it, it's just like I watched The Brutalist yesterday.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't realize that film was nearly 3.5 hours. I was just like, Jesus Christ. Oh man. Like
a lot of concrete, baby.
Good damn. Like, I don't mind a long film, but I broke my foot and ankle. So it was like it's just killing me. And I'm just trying to move my leg, and I'm just like, oh, God damn it. And then there was an intermission, but I have to sit at the front to see the screen. And so I had to go down the stairs. I'm just like, there's no way I'm getting all the way up the stairs just to like do anything. So I just have to like just sit here and wait for the film to come back on, right? But there was things I thought, like aesthetically, the film was great. You know, which makes sense because it's about an architect, right? But there's certain moments in the film where I'm just like, there's something happens to him towards the end, and I kind of felt he's the type of person that would confront someone about it, but they don't. And there were certain things of the story where I'm just like, that doesn't make any sense, right? You haven't explained why they would do this thing or they wouldn't do this thing. And it's just, because then, you know, I look and everyone else is like, it's incredible. It's the best film I see this year. Blah, blah, blah. And you're just like, is there something wrong with me?
Man, I feel like every year, you know, the Oscar noms come out and everybody starts talking about all these Oscar nominated films and Best Picture, and I'll watch them, and so many of them I just don't get into. And it's not a knock on them as films. I'm sure, you know, they're fantastic films. I think it's just not my taste. I tend to like really weird, fun, you know, silly movies, and which I think anybody that watches Clone Cops will say, yeah, obviously. But yeah, man, I don't think that it's like, I don't want to say that they're bad movies because I don't think they are. I think they're great movies. But I have found my discounting the Oscars list and like these, like, this is the best movie of all time kind of thing, because Tremors is one of my favorite movies of all time. You know, like that's not nobody's Oscar list, but I love that movie. Yeah. So, I think it's interesting how you can separate the two. To me, you can look at a movie objectively and say like, yeah, that's a great film. Like, you know, it's really well made, but I found it very boring.
Yeah, that happens a lot. But the thing, like, I look at The Brutalist, and the acting was great, right? The cinematography was great. The Hulkenberg score really fit the film, Yeah, I mean, there's all of these things. The one thing I really hated about the film, fucking subtitles. The subtitles, like, the problem for me is I can't see subtitles. So, like, any film with subtitles, I just can't watch it in the cinema. Sometimes I might try and watch it at home, but there's a lot of rewinding and pausing and all of this. There was no indication there was subtitles in this frigging film. And I feel the first 15 minutes is subtitles. But then the subtitles are yellow, right? Without a solid background behind them. And there's so many times when then you've got the subtitles on, you know, a light sky background. And I'm just thinking, even someone with great eyesight, they're gonna struggle with that shit. And so that was the one thing. Like, I feel, you know, a film, you know, not all films are for you. So I'm fine with that. But all these other things I thought were great, but the subtitles were trash.
It's interesting how, like, things like that will just pop up, and it's something that the filmmakers probably have no control over too. You know, it's the director of that movie probably has no idea that it's problematic for some folks.
Yeah, it's just a weird one, because I'm just like, I just feel sometimes, even if you don't have an issue, surely you can look at that and go, that's not the best, right? That's not the best. But I don't know, man. People just seem to turn out these films with terrible subtitles.
Huh.
It's very odd. It's very odd.
It's a recipe for eye strain.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Have you guys watched Flash Gordon, like the 80s film?
The original, yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a while, but yeah.
Okay, that's great. Because I know Clone Cops really gave me that vibe. Cool. Really gave me that vibe. And I think Flash Gordon is such a great film, but it's like funny, but there's these heartfelt moments, there's the action, and it just, oh man, it's so good. I loved it as a kid, and I still love it now. And yeah, Clone Cops really gave me that Flash Gordon vibe.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, I'm very familiar with the film. I haven't seen it in so long. I'll have to go back and rewatch that. That's high praise. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's one of those films where I'm surprised they haven't turned it into a Broadway musical yet. Because there's all the songs in it, all those classic Queen songs, and you just think, you know, when they turned so many odd things into, you know, Legally Blonde, the musical, like they've done some weird shit.
Yeah.
But it's like they haven't done Flash Gordon yet. This is very odd.
I've been telling Phil we need to do a musical. That's
oh shit.
I'd love to do a musical. If the rights holders of Flash Gordon are watching, I would love to do a musical.
Do it.
Get in touch.
About you, I would love to have the Brian Blessed role. I like, Flash Gordon, he's alive.
If this all comes together the way we're hoping, Kevin, we'll put you on, bro.
Yeah.
Oh, tremendous. Like the films, it dropped, right? It dropped the last week.
The 31st, that's right.
Yeah. So how have things been since that day? Like what was the feelings in the build up to? Because this is, as I say, you've done a lot of TV stuff, and you know, you've been in the industry for a long time, all of you. But this being the first feature, so how were the emotions leading up to and then on that day?
I mean, I think leading up to it, you know, we've been leading up to it for 2 years, so it's been a long road. And I know as the day was approaching, we were excited. We were very pumped. You know, we'd been producing content and advertising and doing a theatrical tour up to that. We've been to a few film fests with the movie and shown it a few times before the release. So we knew that people were into it. We knew that we had something on our hands that could be really, really cool and could be a hit. So leading up to it, we were definitely excited. And then I won't speak for everybody else's experience, but the day it released, we were flying from LA to New York. So we showed the movie in LA and then hopped on a plane the next day on Friday, and we flew into New York. So I was exhausted. I all that buildup, you know, I spent most of the flight just on Instagram, just reposting stuff from people that are, you know, seeing the movie and that were reacting to the movie, and it was great. But yeah, it was definitely an interesting experience to have that much attention poured onto my, you know, not just my Instagram, but me in general. Yeah, and then we screened it the next day, so it kind of felt like, all right, movie's out, back to work. Let's keep going.
Yeah, Kevin, we're at the tail end of a 10-city theatrical tour, right? So again, for that indie film hustle vibe, you want to see your movie in theaters these days, sometimes you got to make it happen yourself. And that's what we did. And then we sold tickets. You know, it's a lot like on the music side of things, which it sounds like you're savvy in. You know, you book the club, then you get busy promoting it and try to get people inside the venue. And so we had a lot of fun and a lot of success with that. And as Danny mentioned, we happened to have a screening lined up for the 30th, the Thursday in LA. And then the day that it dropped, the 31st, we were all making that transatlantic flight from LA to New York. And by the time we got to New York, we were exhausted and the movie was out. And, you know, it was good because we probably needed the day off just to respond to all the going on. You know, I mean, there's that moment, which is great, where it's like, okay, there's just too much. And you just got to let it wash over you and be like, I'm going to let myself off the hook for not being able to reply to every single well-wisher on this very special day. And then that night in celebration, I suited up in the Clone Cops gear, and Corey and I headed out to Times Square, which was just a block away from where we were staying. And we went live on Instagram and on TikTok and, you know, shot some content, met some people. Oh, nice. Yeah, it was a blast, dude. I mean, it was a special feeling, right? Being in Times Square at that moment, but also just knowing like, okay, this is it. The movie's out now. That's it. You know, it's kind of trippy, man. I mean, after so much time from shooting to post to, you know, negotiating a distribution deal, and then it finally happened and now it's out. And now we're, you know, I think a lot of filmmakers will probably be like, cool, this is it, now we're done, now we wait for our quarterly returns. And like for us, it's like, no, man, now we finally have a product. You know, we finally have a way to monetize all this energy we've been expending for the past 2 years. And so now it's just double time into getting people to check us out on TVOD. Apple TV, Amazon, Fandango Home, anywhere that you rent or buy movies, we're there right now.
Yeah. Yeah. That, you know, interestingly, that was one of the, I think probably the last conversations we had Friday night before we were like, all right, we got to pack it up, is, you know, to Phil's point, we've been on this journey for 2+ years, and it felt really cool to say, great, now the movie is out. But we also agreed, like, now the real work really just is starting. Versus up until this point, all the content we've been making, you know, whether it's movie adjacent or it's just fun social media stuff to get eyeballs. Now, you know, to Phil's point, it feels like there's still so much work ahead of us now that the movie's out and we have a product to point people towards. How do we continue to tailor the work that we're doing on social media and out in the real world that is now really looking for conversions and taking that business mindset to say, yes, we made something fun, we made something cool, our beautiful art is now out into the world. Now, how do we get people to pay us to do it again?
Well, I hope you do it again, especially with the way the film ends. Like, it feels like, okay, there's more pages in this book, as it were.
Yeah, we definitely have some weird stuff ready to go for a sequel. So yeah, if you dig this one, then we would love to keep telling this story. That's for sure.
And is that a film, a TV series? Like, because it feels like it could be spun in a few different ways. So
yeah, we're open to all that. Yeah, we're when we started creating Clone Cops, we were aware that we were not just making a movie, we were trying to build an IP. So for us, it's very much like, yeah, video games, our animated series, comic books, wherever that direction takes us, we're definitely interested and open to exploring all of those avenues, because it's a pretty rich world that we've made, and we think that there's a lot of opportunities to tell stories in unique ways.
And we have a comic book. We went ahead and preemptively made a prequel comic book that we've been handing out at our special screenings. Thought maybe I had a copy. Yeah, I don't have one right here with me, but I mean the idea, our little replicant security officer. I mean we're ready to make films 2 and 3. We would love that opportunity first and foremost. But I mean, with the way that the younger audience has been responding to it, we hope we have like a Ghostbusters situation on our hands, where we made a movie not specifically for kids, but that sure seems to take off in that arena. And so everything from video games to animated series, we're looking for partners to develop this with.
Oh man, yeah. And like, just even, like, you just think of, like, because my friend, she's the art director at the I forget the actual name, but it's like the Muse. It's in Alexandria, Louisiana. And she puts on like art workshops and things like that. And it's just like, just it feels like getting involved with something like that and building clone cop heads and just, you know what I mean? There's so many just different like fun things. Yeah.
We're ready for it all, Kevin. There's that comic book, the aforementioned. You'll probably see these popping up on eBay in the tens of thousands of dollars. So who knows? Aspirational thinking.
But it's that, right? It's having all of those things that I just feel a lot of indie filmmakers, and not just indie, but like studio, because sometimes you see a film and it's just like, they spent 10 million on marketing, but you're just like, on what though? Where did that money go? Because I mean, what you've done is pretty fucking substandard, right? But you guys have just done so much, which is fantastic. It is really a testament. And I think a lot of people will look at this and change the way they do their shit.
That'd be
we'll
rad.
See.
Thank you.
I mean,
thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and we definitely have experienced that there is a shift happening in the film industry right now. Things are changing rapidly, and a lot of folks don't really know where the footing is just yet. And I think everybody's kind of like looking to see what the next thing is going to be and what is the next model, because the current models really aren't working anymore. And so I do think that's certainly a thing that we have tried to identify, is where can we take steps, and what avenues can we explore that maybe traditionally films don't do. Like, we did a screening on Twitch with Spice J, who plays Thong Daddy 420 in the movie. We streamed the movie just for his subscribers on his Twitch channel, and it was a blast. We had a great time interacting with fans, and it was super fun. And I feel like maybe that's something, that those sort of things would be the future of it, but nobody knows. But we're open to it.
Have you done any VR screenings?
We have not. That'd be really cool.
Right. Yeah, because it's like, I was just, a few years ago, just hearing that, like, in the VR world, you can go to a movie theater and you can watch films actually in this VR world, which sounded kind of trippy, but it's just like, doing, like having a film screening like that in that world. That's an interesting kind of concept too.
That would be great. I mean, I do think we've talked a lot about replicating the feeling of seeing a movie in the theater, because to me, there's nothing quite like that. So I think there is a growing section of people that are fine just watching stuff at home. But for me, I like the experience of going to the theater and seeing it on the big screen.
No, definitely. And it's when people always say, you know, cinema's dead, you know, cinema's dying. We got streaming now. No one's going to. I'm like, look, it's like having your favorite artist CD, right? And you're playing it on repeat at home. But that's not the same as seeing them live.
Yeah.
Right. When you see them live, it is something crazy. There's been people who I've seen live and I didn't even really like their shit. But then seeing them live and you're like, I like this person now.
You understand the hype. You understand the hype once you experience it the way you're supposed to.
Yeah. It's that wave that kind of takes over you when you're in certain settings, like that energy. I remember seeing Black Panther live in the cinema, and just kids leaving the screen. Like, it didn't matter what race they were, but they're just like, Wakanda forever. And it just like, you just felt so happy. Yeah. Right. And then in Avengers Endgame, when all the Avengers turned up to beat on Thanos, and then everyone's just like, fuck yeah. And it's just the energy in the screens, man. And I don't think you can replicate that, right? People go for that experience. And I think that's why cinema will not die, because it's the energy that you get from that.
Yeah, it's from the other people. It's from seeing it with other people and drawing upon their experience and their energy. And certainly comedy really benefits from having other people in the room with you. Laughter is contagious.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say, you know, we've thrown a lot of things at the wall, including theatrical screenings. And, you know, if any of your listeners, Kevin, have any questions about anything that we've done, it's, you know, just as much as making movies, we love helping other indie filmmakers get their stuff off the ground. So if anybody has any questions about any aspect of anything that we've done, how or why we've done it, just slide in these DMs at Clone Cops, you know, on most social media platforms. We're there, and yeah, happy to help if we can be of service, you know.
Man, that's really nice. That's really nice and thoughtful, guys. Like, yeah. So, you know, I realize I've probably kept you over the time, but what's the next plan? What's the next step for you guys, other than continuing to you know what I mean, get people to pay attention to Clone Cops?
Well, I mean, that's been the focus for so long. We're really, you know, we've got this boulder, we've been pushing up this hill, and we're not going to stop that until we get to whatever that next plateau is. And hopefully that's a breakthrough of some sort on a larger scale. And then beyond that, you know, as we mentioned, we've got numbers 2 and 3 ready to go for Clone Cops, ready to get, you know, would love to start on pre-production as soon as possible. And then we've got a few other ideas that I would say are on brand for us now, right? And kind of weird sci-fi comedy stuff. And then we've got some more prestige type stuff as well with our producer, Charles Royce, that he and I have written a screenplay, and we shot a proof of concept for that as well. So we've got a lot of irons in the fire, but it all kind of rides on how well we perform in getting this thing to break through. You know, we're still looking for that inflection point. It's been cool. We've shown up in some cities with the helmet in costume, and people recognize, hey, Clone Cops. And that's pretty rad, man. Once that's the case everywhere we go, I think we'll feel pretty confident that, you know, that we're making another movie.
Like, if someone came to you, right? If Netflix, Amazon, like Disney, someone like that came to you and like, yo, guys, we just saw Clone Cops. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Like, would you sell them the IP though?
Depends on the price. We would either sell them the IP, or we would use that offer as leverage to get a better deal. Yeah, I mean, that's just that's the business side of things, where it's like we're not going to jump at the very first thing unless it's a great deal for all of us, because we've got a lot of time and effort poured into this. But certainly we would love to see what we've created here be able to reach a much broader market. And a lot of times that's only through some of these larger companies that have got that reach and have got all that money to burn up on marketing that you were talking about, Kevin. I mean, the reality, dude, this was a SAG ultra low budget film, meaning our budget was capped at $300,000, which, if movie making is a drop in the bucket. Anything under $2 million is a low budget film as far as SAG's concerned.
Oh, for sure.
We still did this thing on a shoestring budget. So if we can get it to break through, we're going to be real proud of not just the work we did, but also the business side of things that we kind of figured out. As Danny said, where is the movie industry heading right now? There's a lot of uncertainty that's scaring a lot of people, but that we see as a big opportunity.
Well, guys, I think with your work ethic, and then you couple that to just a fantastic project, which Clone Cops is, I think the ceiling is just so high, so high. So I cannot wait to talk to you about part 2 and then part 3, because I didn't even know there might be a part 3. So boy, that's a good thing to hear. So yeah,
gotta go to space.
Man, I'm sure, those things will, pop off, and then all the other work, because it's, you've put out that proof of products, right? You've shown everyone what you can do, and what you can do is fucking great. So, you know what I mean?
Thanks, dude.
Congratulations, guys.
Thank you so much, Kevin. We appreciate that.
Hey, no worries, man. Like, I'm just telling it as I see it. And even with bad eyesight, I can see that Clone Cops is straight gold. So hey.
That's going on a poster. We'll quote you on that.
Straight gold.
Oh man. All right, guys. Before I let you go, let everyone know how they can keep track of everything that you're doing. Like Corey.
Yeah, so I'm on most social media platforms. Is just Corey Allen _DOP or CoreyAllenDOP.com. And then all my current work, past work, future projects in development. There's details around all that stuff there.
Boom, boom, boom. Music videos.
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. Phil.
Yeah, you can find me online at Phillip.Cordell on most. Talking about sweet merch. Good luck, moron. I live in space. Turn around. It's a family affair. We're all invested in this. You can find me on most social media platforms, Phillip.Cordell. But most importantly, follow us at Clone Cops, all one word. I mean, that's the deal, right? And then Hi-Fi Productions is the name of the company that we produce this through. So give that a follow as well if you want to stay up to date on what else we're doing.
Tremendous. And Danny.
Yeah, you can find me Danny.Dones on IG and just about everywhere else. I'm on Facebook and TikTok and all those jams. And then also I'll just throw out clonecopsmovie.com is also a great place to go for all your Clone Cop needs. We've got links to every platform that we're available on there, and you can link to our store where you can get a t-shirt or a pillow or a poster. We got lots of fun merch. It's not just logos and stuff like that. So like, check it out. Especially watch the movie first and then go check it out, because there's probably some of your favorite quotes on a t-shirt on the merch store.
Fantastic. Well, people, you heard it, right? Go do all of those things. All the links will be on the website. So make sure you go check out Corey, Phil, and Danny. Support the film, because this film is gold, man. This film is funny, it's heartfelt, and you will not guess where the fuck it's going, right? Which is fantastic. So the Oscars snubbed it, but don't you do it.
Thank you so much, Kevin. We appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thanks
thank you
for the time, guys. Take it easy, yeah?
Thank you.
Bye.